Hi, this is Jill, one of the occupational therapists from the team of occupational therapists at Sensational Development. We really wanted to get out a sensory strategies video for children birth to 3 since we are getting so many littles, whether it's in addition to their early intervention services, as a stepping stone, or just as a standalone service. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over how we frame our sensory integration treatment. Using the sensory integration framework, we follow the pyramid of learning. We use a bottom-up approach. We focus on function and individuality. Birth to 3 especially, we focus on play. So generally, we focus on anything that can be done in a day, any occupation within a day. But for littles, that is play. It's purposeful, and that's how they're learning. So it's also known that we learn exponentially faster through play as well, and it's multisensory. Going through the subtypes of sensory processing disorder, you can have a cluster of symptoms from more than one type. We're still learning about this as a profession, discussing and advocating for more recognition. Sensory processing disorder is not in the DSM-5 except for under Autism Spectrum Disorder, though we know it can present without that as well and or with other diagnoses. The most noticeable presentations in a child that is between birth to 3 can be over-responsive to sensory information, under-responsive to sensory information, or clumsy and careful. Down there in a tiny little blurb, I have discrimination, and there also are discrimination disorders. So if a child is over or under responsive to sensory information, they can appear aloof or excitable, aggressive, irritable. Children who can seem clumsy or excessively careful when moving likely are having difficulties with motor planning. Discrimination disorders refer to difficulty processing information from a specific sensory system. So such as trouble filtering out outside sounds, like a fan, when they're being spoken to, or outside visual information, such as toys or lights in the background, when they're focusing on a different toy in front of them. So some possible signs of sensory processing and integration difficulties can be startling at loud sounds more intensely and more often than peers, not responding to name or when spoken to, not looking when being spoken to, and or hyperfixation on preferred items, looking at moving or spinning objects, a child who's bumping into things in their environment, seemingly over or under responsive to pain or temperature changes. Difficulty with oral motor skills, such as excessive drooling, preferring only one texture of food, clear dislike for all but a few food choices, unable to tolerate lying on their back or on their stomach, unable to lift their head while they're laying on their stomach, crying excessively during bath time, changing diaper, clothing, and not meeting developmental milestones. Here I have 2 pictures of children. So I'm showing a child who is also not demonstrating appropriate caution, and another child who is crying during dressing. So basically, we're just looking for a maladaptive response to sensory information, and that would indicate a sensory processing difficulty. So we have various sensory systems. I have another video that goes a little bit more in depth. But overall, we have 3 major sensory systems that work together to define the world for us, especially before we can cognitively reason and understand our surroundings or the properties of our environment, danger, and we use them for bonding. So going over the vestibular system, that's the first system that develops in utero. The receptors are located in the inner ears. I like to explain this in terms of vertigo. So when a person's feeling excessively dizzy from something in the inner ears, that's similar to overstimulation of the vestibular system, though they have different causes. But I find that a good connection. Vestibular activities can look like using a ride-on toy, swings, slides, quick forward and back movement, up and down movement, side to side movement, or spinning. So that can also include jumping on a trampoline. Proprioceptive activities, the proprioceptive system is activated through deep pressure to muscles and joints. So proprioceptive activities are tight hugs and squeezes, massage to hands, feet, shoulders, seeking out excessive crashing, jumping, climbing, and just overall deep pressure. And the tactile system is the first system that we use in utero. Skin is our largest organ. Touch, learning, and bonding all happen through touch as an infant. So thinking about if you're over responsive to touch information, how uncomfortable that can be and how much you would be missing out on as an infant. This is activated through light pressure or temperature. There are other sensory systems, including auditory, visual, olfactory, and gustatory, which is taste and smell. Other sensory systems can work as assist modulators to help us tolerate the larger sensory input and help us process it and integrate it, or as disorganizing inputs. Patterns can change as well depending on the properties of input in the environment, how much input is experienced. So some examples of that would be working in a dark space versus in a bright space, being in a large busy room or a small space, and rhythmic comic music versus arrhythmic music, or high frequency music versus low frequency music. We all have thresholds for sensory input, which varies person to person. Some people have a lower tolerance for scratchy sweaters than others, but it matters most when that's beginning to impact function. I'm going to present the milestones briefly and quickly, but we're going to do another video on this in the future. It's just important to know where your baby should be at in a general sense to know if there is a difficulty. So looking at what's on target for your child's age, but keeping in mind each child is wonderfully unique and can meet skills at different times. If you'd like to read this table more in depth, please pause here. I included the stages of play as well because, again, that is the main occupation for an infant, is learning through play. So there's different stages and types of play. So if you're not seeing the child meet the play skills, that would definitely be cause for evaluation or seeking more information. It's always good to follow up with a professional. If you feel in your gut that something is not right, please continue to seek out information. You are the expert on your child. There are certain types of professionals that we typically recommend that can pinpoint very specific difficulties. So we like to recommend a developmental pediatrician, early intervention evaluations, and that can include physical therapy, speech and language, occupational therapy, and educational. Seeking out private services, either standalone or in addition to early intervention services, and just keeping in mind the major important things for your child as they grow and develop, which include tummy time, diet, activity, and sleep. So moving forward from there, what do we do, right? So some strategies for you are play. Play is how we learn and grow, but here are some tips for enriching that. So avoid containers. Consider enrolling your child in enrichment groups, having more play dates, especially as we are wearing more masks. It's harder for our children to learn about facial expressions. If they're not seeing other children play, they may not be learning different types of play skills and motor movements. So that kind of goes into the next bullet point, which is demonstrate. If your child's learning something new and they are not able to initially figure out how to maybe climb a little slide or a ladder or get onto a swing, it may be better for you to demonstrate or have a peer demonstrate. And again, continue to engage in functional activities. Littles love to do purposeful jobs around the home. If you think about it, that is a big place where they spend their time. So even engaging them in pretend washing dishes with a water and soap sensory bin or just a water sensory bin, having a tiny broom and dustpan to make them feel like they're helping clean, washing fruits in a bowl of water, and then we can cut them up and eat them and get all those crunchy snacks as appropriate, is going to be really, really purposeful and engaging. And think about all of the sensations that we do when we experience when we clean, right? We're touching and we're smelling and we're using our muscles and we're balancing. So that's a really important and functional way of helping your child learn. But the most important thing is to make it sustainable. Building habits, doing a little bit every day can be amazing. Uh, it should be easily integrated into your routine. It should be enjoyable for you and the child. Other tips include letting them experience, let them try things first, and then if they need help, then I would recommend demonstrating. But let them try it first. Don't give them all the answers. Don't tell them how. If they ask how, say, try it. Exploring different sensations. So try playing with more music on or rhythmic beats or arrhythmic beats. Try different sensory bins or playing with a spiky ball versus a regular ball. Engage in tummy time and make that stimulating with different visual based toys, lights, and again, just continue to incorporate different sensations, different textures. Maybe they're laying on a super fuzzy blanket one day versus the rug the next, or even lying on a ramp a day after that. Maybe they have a little ball pit that you fill, or those water bins that they can pretend to wash their fruit in or wash their toys or give their toys a bath. So there's so many ideas and ways to make that sustainable. But thank you for tuning in. That's the end of our presentation today. If you have any specific questions, please leave them in the comments down below and we'll get back to you. But I will link some other informational resources in the comment box down below or the description box. Again, we love to hear from you. If you have a topic you'd like covered, please comment down below or you can email info@sensationaldevelopment.com. And again, thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing from you and making more videos.